Okay. Great. So we now seem to be live.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you all for coming and for making time. This is part of Giving Day, Walden's second ever Giving Day, which is sort of a way to celebrate our programs this summer, which was a very unusual summer, and also raise money to help us get back to New Hampshire for next summer. And I want to thank Nate, May, and Doug Hertz, faculty members who prepared so much of the amazing content that we've been sharing today. None of this would have been possible without their tech help and editing abilities. Yeah, so now I'm just gonna talk about the summer.
Great.
Seth, if you want to take it away.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sheila, and welcome to those of you who are watching our Facebook live stream at home. I'm really thrilled to be here. And while Gayla very humbly thanked Nate and Doug about Giving Day, really Giving Day wouldn't be something that we were able to have without Gayla Dennison-Leonard, Walden's amazing Director of Development and Alumni Relations. So big round of applause for Gayla. Yeah, it's been great. I've even there's been new things today that I haven't seen before, which is exciting. And I know she's put in a lot of work into getting the content up on the website. Hopefully those of you who are logged on at home have had a chance to look at it. I think a lot of that material is still there on our Facebook page. So if you want to go back to Facebook posts, you can check those out. Feel free. I'm joined by wonderful colleagues and students, fellow artists and administrators. And so I'm looking forward to introducing everybody. I'll just introduce myself, and then we'll kind of go around the grid here. And then we're going to engage in a conversation. I have some prepared questions that are very important. No, I have some questions that'll hopefully spark an interesting dialogue. For those of you who are online, if you're on our Facebook feed, you might even put a question into the chat on the Facebook page, and maybe Gayla will interrupt me or send me a text and say, hey, this question seemed really interesting, or that sort of thing. So feel free if you'd like to ask a question in the conversation. So I'll start with myself. My name is Seth Brenzel, and I'm honored and thrilled to be the executive director of the Walden School. I currently live in San Francisco, California, where I'm zooming in from the downstairs office / guest room. And I've been involved with Walden since 1985, where I started spending 6 summers, amazing summers as a student in the Young Musicians program. I attended the TTI program maybe about 10 years ago. And I've been involved with the Walden staff and faculty since 1994, I think. I became director in 2003. And yeah, and this was my first summer in decades not to be in New Hampshire. So this was a new experience of experiencing Walden from San Francisco. Maybe we'll say a little bit more about that later in the introductions. I'm going to invite you all to introduce yourselves. So I wonder, maybe I'll just pick somebody in the group, and then when you're done, you get to pick the next person. It's like a Zoom tag. We'll call it Zoom tag for. It's kind of fun. So I'm going to start with. Let's start with Kara. Kara Haxo, will you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kara Haxo. I am currently an academic dean and a faculty member of the Young Musicians program, and I was a student at YMP for 6 summers, and I am zooming in from Wait Hill, Ohio, which is on the east side of Cleveland, and that might be all I was supposed to say, I think. Maybe?
I think
Yes.
I also want to hear of maybe a favorite memory.
Oh, okay. A favorite memory. One from this past summer was on our very last night of forums at OIME. We had a special surprise of playing goodnight music Francesca Hellerman played it for everyone, and I wasn't expecting to feel quite so moved as I was. It was a really like magical moment, and I think part of that was seeing how much everyone else was responding to it as well. So that was a highlight of this past summer for me. And I'm going to pass it off to Marco.
Hi everyone. My name is Marco, and oh yeah, so I'm currently in Bellevue, Washington, which is like it's near Seattle. It's on the east side of Seattle, and that's where I'm zooming from. Uh, I this is okay. So I've been at Walden for 6 years. 5 years in New Hampshire, and this past summer, obviously, online on Oime. And a favorite memory from Walden that I probably, I don't know, it's kind of hard. I probably say my favorite memories are when we do like singing on the mountains when we hike, especially on Monadnock with everybody like who's hiking, watching. So yeah, that's probably my favorite.
All right, Marco, you have to now choose somebody.
Let's go with Dana.
I'm Dana Jessen. I am zooming in from Oberlin, Ohio, which is not too far away from Kara. This is our Ohio representation here. I'm in Oberlin, Ohio, and I've been involved with Walden for first for 4 years as a faculty member, and for about, I'd say 6 years. Oops, sorry, I think I got muted. For about 4 years as a faculty member, and then 6 years as a member of the Walden School Players as the bassoonist in that group. And this is such a hard question to come up with a single memory because I feel like every summer I have a million memories. So I'm just going to tell you a really fantastic memory from this past summer, which is that all of us have probably been on Zoom a lot, and Zoom meetings can, they can get a little boring. And so I think the most like creative use of Zoom I've ever experienced was this summer when I was invited to one of there was a Halloween event, and there was like a dance off. And it was just like, it was crazy. One student had like a green screen behind her and a green screen that she was holding in front of her with all these different things. It was like the most creative use of Zoom I've ever seen, like still to this day. So for me, I was just like, I continue every summer to learn from these students, and that was a really fantastic thing to experience. So that's going to be my memory. And I will, from there, I'll pass it off to Carrie.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Mallonee, and I am zooming in from Buffalo, New York, where I live. And I've been involved with Walden since 1987, when I went as a child to summer camp, and I went for 6 summers as a student, and then I couldn't get enough, so I went back and I was staff. And then I went back and I became faculty, and then I went to TTI, and then we decided we should make an adult program because Walden is too much fun and it shouldn't only be for young people. And I have been the director of the Creative Musicians Retreat since 2011. And one of my favorite things about Walden is on the 4th of July, we all walk down to the graveyard and watch the fireworks. They do a fantastic show over Dublin Lake. And my favorite thing about it isn't just the camaraderie, and it's not just the actual light show, but it's the echo of the fireworks off of Mount Monadnock. And you just get this double boom every time, and it's just amazing. So I'm gonna pass it off to Matt Gold.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. So yeah, I'm Matt Gold, and I am zooming in from Williamstown, Massachusetts, where I live, in the northwest quarter of Massachusetts. And in fact, I can say on Sunday I went for a hike up to Mount Greylock. It was a very clear day, and I could see Mount Monadnock, which was really quite lovely. I wouldn't have actually recognized it, but there is a little chart showing what you're seeing, and it was clearly that. So it felt very close, at least for a moment there. Um, and I've been involved with Walden in a couple capacities. First, as a member of the Walden Players, and I think my first summer was 2006, and then for several summers after that, and then after a break, I've been in a similar capacity in the Creative Musicians Retreat for the last, I think, 4 summers, and of course this summer online. And yeah, like I think everyone, it's a little hard to come up with a favorite memory because there are just so many incredible memories, and I could just say it's such a rich experience, and I can certainly say that each year when I leave, there's something about it that the things that we do there and that we experience shape really my whole approach to making music with others for the coming year. Um, but that said, I think one of my favorite categories of memories is certainly you know amongst the faculty and the in residence players and that whole group of people, the total like commitment to playing the music that the participants write and to engaging with them, but particularly those performances, really extraordinary. And I'm fortunate that I get to see a lot of those people outside of Walden and play with them, but I have these great memories of them, and the kind of performances they give that are in many cases very specific to Walden. So, memories of like, pirate-based operettas and various things like that, that really, um, it's a wonderful insight into people that you see in these other capacities. So, yeah. All right, then. I think I will pass it on to Joel.
Thanks, Matt. Hey, it's Joel Hobbs. I'm coming to you from my Fortress of Solitude in Austin, Texas. Hello, everybody. Let's see. I first got involved with Walden, I believe, in 2011 as a participant at the Creative Musicians Retreat. I believe that was the first one at Smith College. And I've been back a number of times now. I think it's more than I have fingers on one hand, so my counting systems are overwhelmed. But I've really enjoyed coming back a number of times and to the online program this year, and have really enjoyed all of that. As far as favorite memories, I mean, all the performances are amazing. I think probably some of my favorite memories are from open mics on the last evening, because everybody's really been serious all week and kind of doing their thing and being really intense and getting to know each other. And then finally on the last night, you just kind of get to be yourself and like let your alter ego show and just kind of laugh and have a good time together. And it really just kind of is a nice community moment. So that's something that I remember. Nice. And I'll pass it to DJ.
All right. Hey, how's it going, everybody? We are here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which we've lived here for about 6 weeks now. This summer for Walden, I taught at the online Creative Musicians Experience. And I first went to Walden as a high school student and then returned and after many years to teach at YMP. My favorite memory from YMP, I think I like playing in the dance band, and I also like the open mic nights. So those are my two kind of like, if they were like, you could do one thing tonight, I think it would be one of those two things. But the forums are amazing. But and then with Creative Musicians Retreat, which I've taught at somewhere around 4 or 5 times. I kind of, I hate to say the music part's amazing, but I really like the socializing and hanging with people and talking about the music. So, all right, I'm gonna pass it on to Ash. You haven't gone yet, have you?
I have not.
Right.
Hello, I am Ash. I currently live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I am connected to Walden because I am a Young Musicians Program student from 2014 to present, 7 summers. And my favorite memory from Walden, well, I feel like these past 7 years are like one giant like mental collage. But I'd say that my more recent favorites are virtual group singing, because I think that Walden chorus has probably been the most impactful thing in my life ever. And also also the Thing in Y concert, like, oh my gosh, that was brilliant. And I agree with DJ. I miss playing in the dance band in person in Dublin, so I hope we can all go back together.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's a big part of what Giving Day is about for us, is actually getting back to Dublin, because we are planning to be back in Dublin next summer, and Giving Day is a day to celebrate our successes this summer, which was a summer like no other, but also to anticipate that we all will perhaps get off of the Zoom meetings, as wonderful as they are and can be, and maybe be together in the dance band or on the top of Mount Monadnock or in a composers forum recital hall together. In the future. And it takes all of the village of hundreds and hundreds of supporters from around the world, quite literally, to make Walden go every summer. And so Giving Day is a way to emphasize philanthropy in our community and the ways in which our donors, some of whom are watching and some of whom are right here in my Zoom screen, make it possible for us to have these amazing memories and to make new ones, which we hope to do again next summer in New Hampshire. In the meantime, we're going to Zoom away and enjoy each other's company this way. So I guess I wanted to see if, speaking of Zoom, and anybody could answer this, I'm curious if there was something that was particularly surprising in a sort of pleasant way about the Zoom-tastic summer we just had. And I'll speak for myself and then just say kind of the context of the question. It was a painful choice for all of us to make these choices and to be faced with the cancellation, the suspension, the morphing of plans in various ways. And yet I know that as I reflect back on the summer, there were things that were pleasantly surprising about the experience. And I'm wondering if anybody can think of one of those that pops in your mind. Ash, you just mentioned the Zoom group singing, which, by the way, we have a video clip of that we're going to show later at the end of Giving Day. It's sort of our crowning moment video. And Gayla will say more about that at the end, I think. But besides that, and that can be yours, what comes to mind for those of you who are on the call?
Well, I'll say something that might sound sort of general, which is that I was surprised how much it felt like Walden in the best way. And it wasn't just because I knew a lot of the people from Walden. It's that somehow we still managed to form a community and support each other, and we could be creative and we could make music, and we had a really diverse group of people, and some of whom were very new to Walden and some of whom had been there for years and years and years. And I just loved that it had the same energy as the programs in Dublin have. And it was like I didn't want to step away from my screen because I might miss something. And that's that same feeling that I always get in Dublin. It's like, wait, don't say anything important. I'll be right back. Or, you go to bed just super energized. And so I was surprised because going into the summer, I wasn't sure if we would be able to recreate our Walden community. And I really felt like we did. Mm-hmm. Did any of you feel that way too?
Absolutely, I'll second that. I feel like not only meeting new people, but also being able to reconnect with friends that I had met at previous summers was really great, because we just kind of get right back into the conversation and you just kind of pick up where you left off, and so that was a really nice experience.
Yeah, I also felt like there was this huge sense of community that blew me away since I wasn't expecting it. And I noticed that a lot at OIMI, the Young Musicians version. We had weekly meetings on Mondays, and we had open mics and chances where the whole community were together. And I was amazed at how everyone was participating. The chat on Zoom would like blow up with all these different comments, and it just felt like we were in person in the dining hall. And I was just really amazed at how much new and returning students all just kind of like came together. So I was thrilled by that. It was really cool.
Yeah, I would also agree. And from the sort of performer collaboration side of things, I was probably, like many people, a little bit nervous coming into the situation, thinking like, oh no, we're going to lose so much because it's all on Zoom. You're not going to get that same experience of like being in person with the student and really collaborating and experimenting and trying things. And I was completely wrong. It was exactly like Walden. It felt so personal. It felt so collaborative. And I felt like, I just have to say thank you to the students too, because you all brought it so much this summer. You completely brought it. You completely, yeah, all the students, you totally did it. I was totally blown away by the collaborations with the student, the student composers that I was working with. It was just phenomenal. And I'll also say one thing that I felt was sort of unexpected from this whole remote performance with the players. We did a handful of a couple of solo performances, but our concert was a lot of these sort of synced performances that we put together. And I had only done a little bit of that previous to Walden this summer, and it really brings a different type of artistic energy to the floor, and just a different energy. It's not obviously playing in person with each other, that same sort of chamber music that you get, but it requires everybody still to bring a different energy ahead of time, and really, like when it all comes together, it really works in a way that I was a little skeptical of it, and so that for me was really a nice, rewarding thing to see how those sort of synced performances could actually still convey the same feeling that we would get, performing in person.
That's cool.
I'll go maybe then and say that I think for me, what was surprising and really delightful was that even though we weren't in the same place, connecting through Zoom is really personal and intimate in a way that we're having these rehearsals and working on music and working on pieces with the participants, and we're coming from our home spaces, and that's just much more personal than being in a shared space, and that was I found that really very powerful. And the other thing that I think surprised me was then, I was involved in this from my home life with, in my own house with my family and all the regular home things. And yet, even when I wasn't on Zoom, I felt like I was at Walden. I had a week of my life felt shaped by that in a way that I wasn't expecting at all. And I think, it was hopefully for positive for the people around me too, because I was more or less just in a good mood. But yeah, that surprised me and was really delightful.
That's nice.
I was delighted and surprised by how I was able to sort of be as inspired by my peers as I am every summer. I feel like when I go to Walden, my friends just suddenly become my favorite composers, and it's always been that way. But I was so worried at OIMI that it wouldn't be as as inspirational to hear my friends as it is in in-person YMP, and I was just so wrong. I was feeling those same feelings of like, ooh, that person did something really good, I'm still that, or like, oh my gosh, I could listen to this person's music for hours. Like I definitely felt that, and I hope that my peers also felt that too from each other. I think that's part of the reason why we're such a closely knit community, is because we hear our deepest thoughts through music and we gel so quickly because of it. And I was just so happy to have that spirit continue into OIMI. I mean, OIMI, right? Those are words, sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Matt on what he was saying about Zoom, that in a way, it kind of brought us like sort of closer, because we're kind of just in our like own personal like rooms or desk or like spaces. So that felt quite intimate. So that surprised me. Another thing that I was like surprised about was how much I actually like got to know like new people.
Mm.
I was worried that by doing Walden online that I wasn't gonna like, because I've been at Walden for a while now, so I wasn't. I was mostly like worried about like not being able to get to know new friends like as well as I would be like in person, but that was it surprised me because I was actually able to make a lot of new friends. So yeah, the sense of community is amazing. So
Wonderful. Anybody else want to answer that pleasant surprise question? If there's anybody else that hasn't gone, I didn't keep track, but we can move on. I have other questions. So I'm curious, like, is there something from either this summer or just your previous summers at Walden that you take with you when you leave Dublin or leave the Zoom-tastic month, or what, are there things that you, because we're not at Walden. Walden is this kind of, Avalon-like thing that happens in Dublin in the fog, maybe, or in Zoom, and then with the Zoom meeting ends, and it's sort of, we feel it. We talked about this community, but I'm curious. Most of us spend the other 11, nearly 12 months doing other things, and I'd be curious if anybody has thought a little bit about the things that may translate from Walden time to other things. If there's anything in particular, I'd be curious.
I would say, can I have two things?
Yes, you can have, yes.
So the first is like, a couple years back, there was like a moment on a bus where we were all just improvising through a bunch of past years choral pieces and going off a drone that was also a fan, and we were just kind of going over and over again. Really, it was like the most creative and wacky and fun experience of my life, and I was just, like, everybody was in a heightened state of conscious. It was crazy. And ever since then, I've always just sort of listened more deeply and tried to insert myself into music, into the physical world a little bit more creatively than I normally do, and sort of look around for opportunities for music a little bit more frequently than I used to before Walden. And then the second thing is my friends. It's corny, but I think that like at Walden, the people I meet at Walden are the people who I text every day and FaceTime with every Friday night for the past 7 years. And I love that about Walden. Oh, and the third thing, advice from my teachers. My teachers always get me. I don't know what it is, but I've never come across a Walden teacher who hasn't told me something that I just have not thought about for every year that I go back to Walden, or when I compose outside of Walden, or when I just go about even like writing a paper. It's sort of, they're always kind of like ghosts, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, the good kind of ghost, like the friendly ghosts.
Yes, like Casper.
Awesome. Oh, DJ's got his hand up. Yeah, go for it.
Well, as a teacher, I take a lot of things into wherever I go. One of them is the way that the community is created at the beginning, which I think everyone watching this, share and pair is something that if you're Walden, that's like, you just rinse, wash, repeat that every year. But if you're teaching like at a university and you do that on day one, a lot of students go to a class and don't talk to anybody else, and they just sit there anonymously. So if you like do that on the first day, that like gets things rolling. So I've incorporated a lot of that stuff into as a teacher. And then actually another thing that I find super impressive about Walden is the interaction amongst the faculty. I think that if you talk to anybody who's worked anywhere, I don't think there's anything between anyone I've ever dealt with at Walden that is fits into the stereotypical like office place or workplace drama. Like it's just very respectful of all people and open, and the way that Carrie and Seth run it really leans itself to that. So thank you for that. So
Awesome.
I try to remember that I've not been in a significant argument with people at Walden before. So if you do 12 more months, that's really good.
That's good. Yeah, Matt.
Sure. So I think I say this a lot, but I really think of Walden as like a model and an ideal for community music making. And when I'm there, I feel like everybody is working toward the same goal. You know, the faculty, the performers, the staff, the students, and the administration, and that goal of making music involves all the things that aren't making music too, like cleaning dishes and doing logistical things, and the fact that everybody's engaged in all those things is I find it really inspirational. And when I try to make musical communities outside of Walden, when I'm teaching or in other things, I always try to bring as much of that in as possible, that feeling of everyone working toward that common goal. And I think a thing that goes along with that I see at Walden, and that I also try to bring with that, is the way that, related to that, I think how everything is valued there. Everybody's contribution is valued. And again, it's not just the teachers or the students or the staff or any of those things, but all those contributions are valued and seen as being part of that larger project. And that's something I really aspire to with everything I do. And then finally, I remember from young musicians program, Good Night Music, which sadly I guess we don't do at the Creative Musicians Retreat. But that said, like, my takeaway from that, was that at the end of the day, you do stop. You have to know when to stop, when to put it away, when to leave it, and leave yourself that space to regenerate. And that's a hard thing for me. I tend to be really obsessive about things and find it hard to put things down. But to see that that's really important, and that as a group you need to do that, to leave that space to regenerate and be inspired again, is another thing that I try very hard to bring with me in all my musical pursuits and otherwise.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else want to go?
Sure, I'll jump in. I feel like all of the things that everyone said at previous, I couldn't agree with more. I also take a lot of things, certainly when I was on faculty, a lot of the teaching things that I've done, I take now into my current teaching position. And also just that, I think Ash was talking a little bit about that idea of just opening your ears to new discoveries. I think when you're not at Walden in the 11 or 12 months of the year, whatever, that you're not there, you can feel like you're in this your own little bubble or your own little community, and it's hard to really look past that sometimes. And so whenever I go to Walden, it's really nice because I feel like, oh my gosh, listen, I thought I was listening to all of the new music that I knew, and then all of a sudden there is like this whole new world of other music that I had no idea about. And to that, and also I think, again, working with the students, when you're in faculty with YMT, there's this sort of pedagogical approach of the idea of discovery, drill, and create. And that, I think the discovery part of that is such a crucial component that often gets overlooked, right? I think a lot of other educational institutions usually start with the drill and the create part of that. But the discovery is such a key point. And I feel like when students are engaged in that part of the creation, that discovery portion, it actually pushes me to learn new things about my instrument that I never knew, because they're like, well, why don't you try this? Because I've never thought of that, because I'm not in the discovery moment of the bassoon right now. So things like that come out of it, where I have to remind myself after I leave Walden, to be super open-minded and to encourage, the students that I work with here at Oberlin to be open-minded, and the people that I work with just in the, in the music community, my, professional colleagues, to be more open-minded and to think of things in the way that, a Walden student might. So.
That's cool. I like that. Beautiful. Well, if nobody else wants to go, well, I should say I have another question, but if somebody else wants to answer the earlier one, I'm happy to keep that going. Okay, Marco wants to go. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think also just because like the musicianship program at Walden and really the stuff I learn from Walden in general, I do apply it a lot to like, for example, like high school music, like where I would like, oh, I would kind of think of like a specific drill or like something we learn that is not really done like in the non-Walden music world. I often like make a lot of suggestions to my teachers and other things. Yeah, I don't know. That's just I've just learned so much from Walden, and like reflecting back on like I often would just like go onto like Bandcamp and like listen to some of my like past pieces from like my first year and like second year, and I would just kind of, oh, I used to like write like music like that. Interesting. That's how I thought when I was like 13 years old, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that. Oh, Carrie, you wanna chime in?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that happen at Walden that I try to put in my life at home. Certainly in my teaching, the musicianship program and how we teach composition leaks into all of my teaching. And, because of the pandemic, I've been teaching a student outside on her porch. So that opened up all these things. And I was like, wait, we do this at Walden. And I brought my chalk to her house and I drew some staff lines on the sidewalk. And then we hopped around the staff doing perfect fifths. And we would be like, line, skip a line, F, C, and it felt like Walden. And I think more than that, in any situation, whether it's a private lesson or anything else, it's this idea of improvisation. Like, we don't know exactly what's going to happen here, and the idea of fun. Like, even though this is serious and we're going to learn, like, it should be fun. So let's make it fun.
Yeah.
And then I would say the other thing that I do at home because of Walden is, like, on Saturdays, I'm like, how are we going to get outside? Are we going to go for a hike? Or are we going to go to the park? What are we doing on Saturday? And then on Sunday, I'm like, we're cleaning up. Because that's what you do at the Young Musicians Program. Yep. And I feel like that's a really good way to structure your week. It's like, yep, we learn, we hike, and then we clean.
It's a good mantra for life, I think. Yeah. That's great. I'm curious if any of you want to ask anybody else a question. And while you're thinking about that, I just wanted to check with Gayla. We're scheduled to spend about another 20-25 minutes here. Right. Okay. Just making sure. Sometimes some of my Zoom meetings are 3 hours long, so I just, I want to make sure that I'm thinking about that. Does anybody want to pose a query to one of your fellow panelists? And you can include Gayla and me in that group too. You don't have to just, it doesn't just have to be.
I'll toss one out for Seth. I'm going to lob you a softball. So tell us from the San Francisco side of things, what, like, obviously we're raving about how great Zoom Walden is, but that is not, I think we would all not trade that for in life Walden.
Right.
Was what are you looking forward to bringing back to live Walden next year? Like, what are the things that we missed that you're looking forward to in real life?
Perfect. That's a great question. And I'm going to couple it with a question that I asked all of you that I'm going to ask myself, which is also about what I was pleasantly surprised about related to sort of the online version of our programs. I missed the connection with our Monadnock community and neighbors and our the people that come to our concerts and kind of happen in off the street to our free concert series and love to support us even though we're doing the strange new sounds in the middle of the forest, but like they come and they think that this is adventurous music and they're excited. So I miss performing for them. I think the thing that was hardest for a lot of us was the lack of group singing, which is such a critical component of our daily lives at both our CMR and YMP programs. And then group singing has become so compromised. And we found some creative ways to try to do it online. And like I said, stay tuned. We're going to show you how we did it. It was really fun. But I think I'm looking forward to those two things in particular. The good night music ritual that we do every night at the Young Musicians program was something of a bit of a casualty of not being able to be together. And we made it made a cameo appearance this summer, which I think was special. And if I look back on it, I think that was the best way for it to happen, rather than it to be something where we're trying to. We really made an effort this summer to basically cancel our programs and then literally stack up the things that we felt like could be translatable. And so even though a lot of the things that we did referenced the in-person programs, we weren't kind of always trying to just push things into the online milieu. That wasn't our sort of goal. We were trying to be choosy and thoughtful and really trying to curate the experiences. And there were things that we did that online that I'm sort of like, well, no doubt. Why don't we ever do that? Why have we never thought to do that in person? So I think one thing that you will look forward to, particularly Young Musicians Program students, is we have these amazing chefs at Dublin School. We rave about the food. We have for decades talked about the food. I think half the reason many of us are there is for the meal service, these amazing food for days and variety and deliciousness. They're all smiling and nodding. That's good. I'm not wrong there. We engaged one of our chefs this summer, Neil, in teaching students and faculty and staff to bake a dessert. And so now we're going to have baking with the Dublin chefs, or some kind of way of interacting with the chefs that are not simply thanking them for our food. And it's like a learning opportunity. And of course, musicians and artists, we love food. But figuring out a way to connect with them in person in that way was something that Doug, I think, I think he sort of came up with this cooking idea. Let's do Zoom cooking. I was like, okay, sure. And yeah. So I think that, I don't know, that those are some things, DJ. I'm sure there's a longer list, but I appreciate the question.
The cooking idea is outstanding.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up there. I'm wondering who learned to juggle this summer and whether you've been juggling since.
I've tried many times. There was one week where I was doing it every day, and my sister would be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so bad at it. Let me show you how to do it." And then, but she's not even that great. Like she can do like a couple rounds, but yeah, I can't do it. But I've been trying. I've gotten a little bit better, but I still haven't gotten the hang of it yet. But
I want to amend my hand raise. I actually didn't learn how to juggle, but what I learned is that in order to learn to juggle, you have to learn to drop the ball hundreds of times in the exact same place and pick up the ball where you dropped it. The only way you will learn is if you have this kind of thing and the ball drops in the exact same place over time. Because part of what you're doing is trying to train so that you're not looking at the ball. And in order to do that, you have to know where it's going to land. And so part of juggling is literally bending over and picking up the ball and like looking and like, oh, and just doing it over and over. It's like, okay, yeah, the ball is like more and more landing in the same place. And then you do that with two balls. So anyhow, I wouldn't say I learned how to juggle, but I learned this really interesting concept that juggling's not about watching it, but it's actually like the real practice is allowing it to fall. So it's like you have to practice failing as best you can. Really, it's very metaphorical, I thought.
I'm not sure if there was a context to the juggling question or if that was just something you were curious about personally. But either way, I'll say that I've long felt that as a drummer, I should be able to juggle. They seem related. I also feel that I should tap dance, and I really don't do either of those things. But I'm also, speaking of failure, I borrowed a set of juggling pins in December from a neighbor, and was, of course, far too busy in January, February, March, and then still somehow haven't even tried it despite 6 months of, quarantine, which makes me wonder about myself a little bit. And finally, I saw the person who lent them to me recently, and I just had to keep my head down, because at some point she's gonna say, "Hey, how those juggling pins going?" And I truly have no excuse anymore. So maybe this will inspire me.
We had some juggling classes at the OME program, courtesy of Susan Lord, who's one of our supporters and a parent of an alum, and who has taught some juggling at the in-person programs, the YMP, the last couple of years. So. Anybody else have questions for others?
I have like a weird question about what behind the scenes stuff is like especially for like forum moderators. If people in the room have moderated forums in person and over Acme/OIME, like was it different?
Yeah. We've got a lot of forum moderators here, so yeah.
Yeah, I can go. It was definitely different doing it over Zoom. I think it took a little bit to get going for me personally. Part of it was just like at in-person Walden, especially for YMP. We already have had multiple forums. We've had 5 forums before we get to festival week. So like I feel like we're all kind of warmed up and used to forums and used to asking questions. For me, I'm used to like staying awake late at night too, which I'm not as used to doing these days. But I think so there were some differences, and obviously like learning to be like, oh, hi, so I could like find the person show up on my screen. But once like that process started to get going, it did feel very familiar, and it was really nice for me. Like as a teacher at OIME, I was working with some students, but I hadn't gotten to meet everyone yet, like one-on-one or talk to everyone in the community. So I was really excited to talk to students who I hadn't spent as much time with to get to know them and their music. And that felt very familiar to me and very forum-like. So that was exciting.
I just want to say, Kara, you moderated the forum I was on, and it was very fun. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's cool. Anybody else? Carrie, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. I thought the forums online were really nice, and I was surprised again because I wasn't sure how it was going to translate. But then I loved seeing the Zoom room and all the faces, and just knowing that all those people were in this moment listening to that music and responding to it, just as we would do in Dublin. And it's a really special thing that Walden has, and it's a really special format. A lot of times people get feedback after a concert, but they don't get immediate feedback, and it's not always in the form of a question. And I just felt like the Walden spirit was still there in those Zoom forums. And one thing I thought was really, really great was that all these people were all over the place, and we were all coming together to be in that moment together. And it felt really special, and it was like a concentration of all this energy into our screens, but it was coming from all these disparate places in the best way.
Can I add to that? Just this isn't necessarily about moderating, but it's just about the format of the forums, and that I don't know if any of you have seen any other remote performances in the last several weeks. But it is, many of the remote performances that I've seen have really just been one sort of directional, where you can watch as a viewer in your home, but you don't really get to interact at all with the performers. And I think Walden, and especially huge amount of thanks and props to Alex Christie and Doug Hertz, who like really did such immense work to put all the technical, the technical team together. They really figured it out, and what they figured out was really just to have all these people come together on Zoom to have these conversations and have the actual discussion, but then to have a high quality stream and high quality video, they would then go to this YouTube link. And that is such a great model because that allows you to connect and it creates this community. It maintains the community while still having, Zoom does not work very well with performances or any kind of, video share, any of that. It's not very high quality. So having that and then figuring out that the YouTube streaming link, it was brilliant. And kind of to what Carrie was saying, also like that, maybe this summer was, unique in a number of ways, but in one especially special way was that you were bringing together so many people, in one space at one single time that probably wouldn't otherwise be able to, have that specific audience or group together in one room ever, right? Because we had parents joining, we had family and friends joining who may not normally come to Dublin, in addition to all the students and the participants and the artists. And so for me, that was also a really special moment because it was like Walden was truly expanding to all parts of the world where people were coming together that normally wouldn't be able to come together, in an auditorium in Dublin, New Hampshire in a normal year. So I thought that was really special and beautiful.
Can I add to that? One thing that was really neat is, at the online creative musicians experience, we have all these adults and we think of them as adults and we don't necessarily think about them having parents in the way that we do think about our young musicians having parents. And all these adults invited their parents to the forums this summer and they were there and it was just, they were proud and they wanted to comment. And again, they're, most of those parents wouldn't have traveled to Dublin to be at those forums, but just to have those family members there. And they also brought their children. So I did feel like the multi-generational aspect of it was just a really beautiful thing to witness.
Mm-hmm. I think that was very sweet. I agree.
If I may jump on that and say for the opening Acme concert, I had the distinct pleasure of hearing my mother's voice going, "How do you mute it?" Sorry, Mom, but it was. I thought it was endearing.
That's good. Yeah, go ahead.
I also wanted to add on to that because of how so many people were able to come to the forums. I think it also surprisingly what I was afraid of because I'm also doing online school, right? And so often what students would do when we do online classes, it would be they would be somehow afraid to talk because we're not in the same room and it's often but I was just really surprised during the forums at OIME this year that there was actually a lot of engagement, and I think it was sort of adding on to what Dana was saying, so many different people who wouldn't necessarily come to a forum or are able to come to a forum were able to come and experience the music together. So yeah, so I was definitely really pleasantly surprised by that.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'm inclined to ask one more question, but I think it'll push us a few minutes past the hour. Do you think that's okay? Are people okay with that? I don't think it's a long question. And maybe we'll just wrap up with this question, but this is a sort of more looking ahead. We've reflected a lot on what's happened and kind of ways that you're taking Walden into your life. But I'm curious what aspiration or imagination or hope you have for Walden's future next summer or the summers after, and or maybe how you think sort of hopes for the experience that people will have at Walden next summer and in summers to come. I stumped them again. That's good.
I always feel like my answers are so obvious. It's like, well, what do I hope for Walden? I want Walden to be in New Hampshire next summer, and I want us to all be together making music together, and I want us to be able to sing together. I want to be able to give people a goodnight hug. I want to have the food in the dining hall. I want all those wonderful things.
Yep.
But I mean, I think it's bigger than that, because I do know that what we did this past summer was Walden, and it was special. And I'm also looking at this coming year thinking, June is a really long time away. So I hope that Walden and the Walden community can continue to support each other and make music together, for the next 10 months.
Yeah.
And then continue Walden's history in New Hampshire and beyond.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, maybe the thing that I can kind of add on to that is that, probably between now and the spring is not going to be necessarily as easy as in previous years. And so I think that because we have come together so cohesively and in such a beautiful way online and remotely, I think my hope is that we can continue that and continue to support each other through the year, and that this whole Walden community can stick together, and that we can really be part of each other's lives through, until we see each other again in June.
Nice. I might just say, as a bit of a teaser, stay tuned, Dana, because there are some things that we're going to tell you about and involve you in and think about together. So that is in the your great minds think alike. We're thinking along those lines. So.
This one is kind of personal, but this coming summer is going to be my last summer, my graduating summer, and I sort of hope that I can spend the summer expressing how truly grateful I am for every individual who has stood alongside me in the Goodnight Music Circle. And I hope that when I leave, there's more people who are interested in that little preteens come in who are interested in performing and composing at the same time, and who are interested in improvisation, or people just come in and that Walden continues to encourage performance as an element of composition within its composer student body.
Yeah. That's nice. I really like that.
It's very niche. Sorry, I feel like I should have said something like world peace.
Well, I think it is, but it's not. I think actually, I think that's actually an important kind of cultural value that we have, that performance is central to composition, is central to performance, which is to say there's a kind of a circle there. It's not a like composer hands score to performer interprets score. And I actually think that's actually been my experience of Walden over the decades, although I think we are more conscious of it now, and maybe we might even be trying to create more opportunities maybe programmatically about that. And I think about the dance band actually as a really interesting example of that, because as when I was a student, the faculty played the songs pretty much, or we had a recording, but that we've encouraged kind of y'all come to the dance band and there's a performative part you can perform and be in the dance, or vice versa. And it's a small example, but I just want to lift up what you said, Ash, about the sort of the composer performer. I think there's lots of room for that at Walden, and I hope for that too, preteens or otherwise.
Yes, of course, all ages, performer composers everywhere. Yeah. That's my dream for Walden when I visit after I graduate.
Oh.
I'll go ahead if it's okay. So the idea of taking a bus to New Hampshire from the airplane and making your way to Walden and pulling into the driveway of Dublin School just sounds so tasty right now after this long summer of sitting alone, or well, I mean not alone, basically with just a few people here and there. And then for the CMR people, the camaraderie that goes with being an adult but going to a place for 10 days where you're it's the same as the high school kids. Actually, it's just you're meeting other people that are into what you're into, and you get to shoot the breeze with them and make music and have all these performers play it, and it's an outstanding opportunity in life to experience something like that. And then for the YMP people, I mean, what place do you go and put down your phones for 5 weeks and like make music with your friends and go into a faraway land separated from all the things that you can see on the television if you turn it on, which, you know, you could like some of them, but a lot of them are, you know, you could say, put them away for 5 weeks. It's okay. You know, we can let ourselves do that. And so I think that that's the thing that will be great for next year. If the people that we like, you know, wear your masks and everything. So,
Good. PSA, wear your mask. That's right.
Yeah, I definitely miss being phone free.
Yep.
Yeah.
it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's like they're not going anywhere, but like at least there's one place. And you know, and even for the faculty that kind of have them here and there, you're like, oh, I don't need to like look at that every second. Actually, many seconds. Sometimes hours and hours and hours and hours. It's very cool.
I've always said that the reason why I need my phone is to keep in touch with Walden people, and the reason why it's so easy to put my phone down at Walden is because I don't need to keep in touch with them. They're right there.
Yeah. Right on.
Well, that's a nice thing. That's how I feel about my very best friends that I've collected over the course of life. You know, so that's awesome.
Well, good. Well, does anybody have any final thoughts they want to share? Or, I mean, I will just, for me, I really enjoyed this conversation with you all. And, you know, I've moved, you know, I'm thinking about next summer and we're doing this fundraising campaign and we've got taxes and audits and budgets and, you know, oh my, and, you know, there's a lot of other things going on. But it's really nice to reconnect with you all in this, you know, two-dimensional checkerboard space, but I hear your voices, which is another dimension of sound, which is so important to all of us. And it's really brought my heart back to Walden in a really important way. So I'm really grateful for you all spending this hour talking about Walden. Do you guys, anybody else want to say anything before I hand it back to Gayla to close up?
I miss the dances too.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me 3.
Yeah.
I'd maybe just like to say that once again, you know, just even this hour has been kind of inspirational, and I want to thank you, Seth, for everything you're doing, and Carrie, and everybody who keeps it going throughout the year. And it's just great to be here even now and see you all.
Yeah. Thanks. Great. Well, Gayla, I'm going to turn it back to you. And yeah, just thank all of you again for zooming in, and thank all of you at home for watching along. I hope it was remotely entertaining and certainly an informative. And, you know, I hope you learned something about Walden and how we spent our summer this summer.
Thank you all so much for joining our Giving Day Summer Highlights Reflection call. Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing what was happening this summer and getting the inspiration of the composers forums and all of that, sort of like Walden, do you know, hope for humanity.
Yeah.
So
the potential element these days.
Yes. Yep. So Giving Day has been a really fun way to look back on the summer and celebrate that. And we have about 1 hour left, and we're very close to our goal, which was to raise $3,800 in honor of our 38th season at Dublin School, which we thought would be in 2020, and now we look forward to it in 2021. And so we're just about there. And if you're on the Facebook, we will be, or on the email actually, we'll be sharing a video. Our last video of the day is student-led group singing from OIME, which features Ash and Marco, and is just really beautiful. So hopefully you see that, and thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Gayla. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you the next time.